Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. It is the 7th, and we got NonFarms payrolls. No, you know what? This is going to be a weird one. So Donald Trump earlier in the week was saying, hey, look for a good payrolls report later in the week. But here's the thing. When he was saying that, I don't think that he had access to the report. So that is kind of the argument here. A lot of the micro data says that the news is actually going to be worse than the estimate. So let's come in here. We are looking for a headline reading of 1,580,000 versus a previous reading of 4,800K. Average hourly earnings to be down negative 0.5%. Employment, that's Canadian. Hourly earnings year over year 4.2. Non-farm payrolls private 1,474,000. And the unemployment rate to be 10.5. What does Baby Yoda think about this shizzle? He doesn't think anything. He's cardboard. Yeah, okay, so anyways, to the charts. Yesterday, okay, so it's kind of funny because yesterday I made my title that the jobs numbers were good, but that the market remains subdued, and that was basically what happened yesterday. There's a little bit of down, there's a little bit of a up, but then, long after that, in the afternoon, we just got this crazy up move that out of nowhere, really. I'm hearing a lot of theories. One of them is that they were buying in anticipation of this report. Another one is that it was over Donald Trump tweeting that he was going to sign an executive order that would continue the unemployment benefits. We'll see. I don't know. It wasn't kind of, if that's why they were going up, I don't think it's justified, because I think that the unemployment insurance will be extended at some point was already baked into the market. But I could be wrong. Treasuries, it's kind of a similar thing. It was like they were up pretty good in the morning, but then they gave it back. And here overnight, they're up. So, like, there's a real tug-of-war going on in the treasuries because they're going up and then down and up and down. Overall, though, the trend is still up. And see here, higher lows. So we'll see. Oil, sliding back down a little bit and back to where we were before that really nice move a few days ago. Excuse me. Gold given back a little bit, but I mean, man, yeah, overnight new high. We're at 2080. I mean, look, we were way down here at 2000. Yeah, gold is still on a tear. And the dollar continues to get hammered, with it sitting below 93 now at this point. That one's always better to look at over here on this 5-minute chart. I want to see where it's going lately. So here we see they closed yesterday below 93, but now we're a little bit above. Okay. And it looks like the market is neutrally positioned from the overnight. So, maybe slightly negative. So that's basically where we're at. Let's make sure we turn on the squawk again. Let's turn on you guys over here. And while we're waiting, we got about 4 minutes. Let's go and read a few things. Thing to remember is that if Meadows were still in Congress, he would almost certainly be a no vote on any conceivable deal. Yeah, it's probably true. That's funny. If the market never goes down, the system is doomed, says Zero Hedge. Yeah. I think I know what that article is going to be, and if it is, I kind of agree. I feel like that there needs to be a significant pullback here at some point, or we're going to have real problems in the future. Check the overnight, guys. Brannigan Barrett, pay attention. Dollar is bid pre non-farm payroll. Dollar will be bid post non-farm payroll. A number as expected or better, and yields should rise gradually. A strong dollar and rising yields and gold will see some fast profit taking. 2045 is the target for shorts today. Brannigan's looking to short gold, eh? Well, I think if the number is bad, I think I want to take it in the E-mini because they just look so extended, whereas the treasuries already kind of bid up. Because it seems to me like the guys in the treasuries are making a call that we're going to get deflation, which makes a lot of sense to me. But then there must be other factors going in, like maybe just the hedging from the E-mini just going up so much. I don't know if people are actually in buying the treasuries off of inflation concerns. I'm not so, or sorry, selling the treasuries off of inflation concerns. I'm not so sure that that's going on. Oops, we need to turn this on. There will be, the market is just been needing in more Robin Hooders to the maybe Uzi. I don't know, man. Okay, so let's do this. Wow. I don't think that I can safely put an order in there. So I may have to hit with market orders here, to be honest. Okay, it's up. Yeah. Because that was a pretty good number. What's the head? I haven't gotten the headline number yet, but Treasury's getting killed there on that. Well, probably would have been a better trade. Whew, okay. So weekly hours is about in line, 34 spot 5. Average hourly earnings was good, spot 2 versus a negative spot 5. So that's going to just destroy the treasuries. Gold is getting slaughtered, dude. they're not even close to their upside potential here on this. So just to go back through the numbers, average hourly earnings was spot 2 versus negative spot 5 expected. And the employment change was 1,763,000 versus an expected 1,530,000. So the numbers were overall good. Unemployment rate is 10 spot 2 versus expected 10 spot 5. So we should be able to ride this for quite some time. Almost certainly will break the overnight high. And that will be yesterday's high, yesterday's close, etc., etc., etc. And I guess you could say Trump wasn't lying that the unemployment numbers could be good. He normally doesn't get that number that early, though. So what do you think? How did he know?
Dan H says nice movement on jobs.
Yeah, well, a bit of a fight there in the 3340 area. A bunch of longs taking profits there, I believe. But given the situation, I think that this is an okay place to just add. Same here in the treasuries. Maybe it could go short. Hold on. don't know about that one. Now, what's wrong with this chart? All of the indicators are gone on it. That's curious. Hmm. Zero Hedge coming through with the headline, Trump was right. Big payroll number smashes expectations as 1.76 million jobs added. That is a lot. I think this is kind of where some people were saying that even though the short-term things were negative, that a lot of that wouldn't show up in this employment report, and they ended up being right. Donald Trump tweeting about Joe Biden. Sleepy Joe Biden just lost the black vote. This statement is a disaster from which there is no recovery.
Brad Messerl says good morning.
Good morning, Brad.
Sunday Driver says the real thing to focus on is the gap between where we were and where we're expected to land. I keep reading, and I believe it, that something like 30% of the lost jobs aren't coming back.
Well, the unemployment rate is only 10% in those numbers. I think the situation is probably a lot more complicated than that. Like when you're talking about 30%, it's not like a 30% of the overall economy, right? It's going to be like a much smaller percentage of that because you have to look at how much was actually lost and so on and so forth. But I think there's this other issue, which is that the
Mark
losses.
Anthony says Sleepy Joe Biden.
Yeah, I don't know why he calls him Sleepy Joe. I don't know if that one's really working. But anyways, I think that a lot of the things that are actually going to cause the real losses haven't come to fruition yet. Dang it.
Brad Messerl says, is there an email that I can email you it? I have some ideas I would like to talk to you about.
Sure. Really the best way to get a hold of me, dude, is to message me on Discord. You go to the Discord link in the video description below, and I'm just the admin on the server. And that's really the best way to get a hold of me. I think the market maker needs way more longs to get up higher. Is what it looks like, and I think that I'm just misjudging over and over where they need to go.
Mark Anthony says, what do you mean by things that will cause the real losses?
Well, like a lot of this is companies are holding on to jobs because they took PPP loans and things like that that prevents them from actually laying people off. And so when those time periods expire, then they'll have to lay people off. And so you could end up getting a late wave of yeah, a late wave of layoffs. Well, it looks like they want to go back to the open number. Hmm. I think I'm going to be okay, but clearly could have improved a few things there. I could put more contracts on, but I don't think I should do that here.
Sunday Driver says NPR is saying that the job number shows that employment showed signs of slowing.
Well, it is showing signs of slowing. I mean, you got to remember that the previous number was 4,800,000. So it's slowing, but they're not. They're still adding more jobs than expected. But that probably means that things will settle around 8 to 10% unemployment, right? For, say, the election. Hmm. So interesting how gold took a real dive and has recovered most of it now. So it looks to me like this pullback in the E-mini is correlated with some pretty strong movements in the currencies. Okay, so what I saw there in the 10-year did not work out at all. I bet Mr. Barrett is a little frustrated right now because he was saying the area for shorts in gold was like 2040 or something like that. And they had a really good initial move down, but gold has flipped it on its head very aggressively. So it seems like there is something going on in the currencies that I wasn't expecting and that I don't completely understand yet. And I'm not sure if that's going to flip around or what. So you would think that good unemployment news would be good for the dollar, right? Hmm. Twitter has decided to ban BitChute links. What a load of shit. Wow. That's disappointing.
Sunday Driver says looks like US dollar is up.
Well, no, I have it down at 93 right now. They were at like 93.25 and before the news, and now I have them at 93. No, sorry, they were at 93.15 before the news. And you can kind of see that. Well, I'll show you.
Sunday Driver says okay. After the news, still up from the overnights.
So see, the expectation off of a good jobs report would be that the dollar strengthens and that they would sell the euro, sell the 6J, sell gold. But you can see they did do that initially, and then they flipped. And since they have flipped, they have gone much higher than they were before that move. So some people are moving some money. The problem is for us is that that's not enough for us to really understand where it's going. And since it's kind of contrary to the expectation, I don't know if it's going to turn around and eventually go in line with our expectation or what. You know, why would you take that news and move your money out of the dollar? It's because it just makes a good opportunity to do it or something? I don't know. I'm really quite, how do I say this? I guess I can just say disappointed. I mean, I don't even know if disappointed is the wrong word, because it's totally what I would expect from Twitter. But I just find it really disheartening that they would ban BitChute links. Are they going to ban BitChute links on all of social media now? That's just so, man.
Uzi Knesset says, did you say BitChute links?
Mm-hmm. Staxhammer is going off about it right
Uzi
now on
Knesset
Twitter.
says, sorry, I was up making a bagel.
Yeah,
Sunday
no.
Driver says Twitter is moving away from being a free speech platform. It's only a matter of time before a mass exodus. The triggering event has not yet happened. It will.
Sure. The other day I was like, I saw this is not a drill. They what is it? Locked the president's account, but it was the president's campaign
Dan H
account.
says, I guess I never heard of the
Did you
BitChute.
see this one? Oh man, that was so crazy because Donald Trump said, "Oh, children are practically immune to the coronavirus." Okay, they're not practically immune, but the death rate in children is exceptionally low. Like here in the United States, study by the American Pediatrics Association looking at the numbers, they have the death rate for kids at like spot 0.02. I mean, like it's really crazy, crazy low, right? The risks to children in particular for reopening schools is practically non-existent. Okay, that's the point he's making. But because there's, he said that they're practically invulnerable to it. They say that, well, that's misinformation, and they locked the account until they deleted the tweet. Which that's another thing that I just think is such bullshit. It's like if somebody posts something inaccurate, then delete it. Don't lock the account and force the author to do it. Like, We will lock your account until you conform. It's such it's such a dystopian move. You know what I mean? So now here again,
Sunday Driver
BitChute.
says, I don't think that's an overstatement. Children are practically immune, statistically.
Statistically, they're not, unless you have like honestly, there's hardly been maybe a few hundred kids, and they majority of those had complicating factors, right? Anyways, there was a discussion on one of my more popular friends' Facebook feeds. And this guy was asking, how are you feel about sending your kids back to school? Are you going to be sending them back, or what's your district doing, or whatever? And I said, oh, they're going back, and they're going to go as often as they can, even though the districts right now is saying only every other day. I think that's going to change, but right now it's only going to be every other day. And, so I thought that he just wanted to know, but then he started to probe me about it. And so I asked him, like, why do you think that they closed the schools? And he said, to protect the children, I would assume. I was like, no. Pretty sure that's not why. Why don't I have it over here? Pretty sure that's not why. It's just they close the schools to prevent the spread because children can potentially spread it. That's been disputed by studies too, but this looks like a Wyckoff formation. Anyways, so I went through the statistics with him. I was like, okay, there's been 100,000 children that have caught coronavirus in the United States, and only like 200 of them died. And you could go and argue that there's probably complicating factors like obesity and diabetes with them, right? It's just like if 0.02% chance of mortality is the rate of risk at which you have to take extraordinary measures like keeping your kids home from school, you'd never be able to allow them out of their rooms. It was, and that was the way they are. And he heard me and he was like, okay, well, let's just hope that it doesn't like change. Yeah. So I think here's what's going to happen. There was a story on Reddit today, the story that they were apparently pushing on r/politics was that a child in Florida that was 7 years old died from coronavirus. One kid, and they made a story about it. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is something that thousands of people have died from, and you're going to make one story about the one time that a kid died? What? That is the media sometimes in this country, right? CNN, I think it was a CNN story. Just shameless bullcrap, you know? And that's what they're going to do, is you'll look at the overall numbers, not very high. But whatever it is, if any person dies, they'll make a big deal out of it. Sketchy. And the sad thing is that people fall for it because people just it seems so weird to me, but this is the one of the fallacies that I fall into the most is not realizing that different people have different understandings about things. So to me, it's like, well, you look at the numbers and these are the statistics that should be important. And, this is kind of the common pitfalls in looking at numbers and things like that. But the most people don't know those things. They just hear, oh, a child died. My child might die. And they don't actually look at the data to realize that the chances of that happening to their kids are so minimal that it's trivial. So anyways, BitChute is a peer-to-peer video sharing network. So it's like YouTube, but running on what do you call it? Like it's like a torrent-based YouTube essentially. I mean, it's much more complicated than that, but there's no like there's no centralized way to cut it off, the bandwidth, we'll say, right? And so it's a way for you to share video. And I don't think it's perfect. And I do kind of still hope that something better comes along, or that BitChute itself becomes better. But the guys that have gotten banned and so forth, that's kind of where they've gone. And Sexhammer, who has not been banned by YouTube, and I think that he's pretty good. And if he ever gets banned, at that point, I'll be like, I mean, that's a guy that I think kind of approaches it like me. He's very cautious to say what is true and what is not true, and so on and so forth. He doesn't promote conspiracy theories. He only talks about things that we can confirm and gives his opinion on them. If he were to get banned, then I'd be like, oh man, I'd be so incensed. But he's
Sunday
posted a
Driver
lot
says,
on
relatively
BitChute.
speaking, children are less likely to die. Article 1 just read said that 1 in 10,000 approximately. What would the number need to be for it to be practically immune?
I don't know, man. 100% immunity.
Uzi Knesset says a lot can happen before November. We all knew the censorship would octuple down before November.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I'm worried about is the astroturfing. You notice that most of the efforts that they have right now are still suppression tactics. But at some point, the astroturfing is going to come along. Frankly, I think that there's a lot of one of the things that I think is
RJ
going
Wheel
on.
says good point Sunday.
One of the things that I think is going on is I think that because the far right forums have all moved off of the popular platforms and onto alternative platforms, that they are now more susceptible to astroturfing from foreign entities. Because when I look at what they talk about on the Donald, it is not what they talked about before. And they seem to be so much more easily distracted. They're always talking about shit that doesn't matter. And when like news stories come up where they have really good opportunities to set narratives and things like that, they're not that interested in it. You know, like I was talking about last week, the Democrats totally screwed up on this unemployment thing. They straight up prevented unemployment from being
Gary
extended.
Rich says who cares what Twitter does, their platform, their rules. Don't like it, don't use it.
Well, so my argument is that Twitter should act in an ethical manner. Just because it's their legal right doesn't make it ethical. And what Twitter is doing is unethical. And I would appreciate it if social media platforms just acted in an ethical manner and not censor their users. Why is that?
Uzi Knesset says yeah until you realize Twitter is driving global mainstream politics, culture, and thought.
I think that the argument that they're a private company, if you don't like what they're doing, then don't use their service, is such a poor argument. That doesn't mean that what they're doing is okay. And what we're saying is what they're doing isn't okay. Now, should the government force them to be open?
Gary Rich says
There's an
please claiming
argument for that.
Silicon Valley is ethical is like wishing God is coming back.
I mean, I used to
Uzi
think that they
Knesset
were.
says don't get me wrong, it doesn't make any sense. Relatively speaking, no one uses Twitter.
Was it? I don't know. I mean, I think you're right, Uzi, but Twitter still seems to be very influential. And I mean,
Sunday Driver says social
have to
media
use it a
platforms
lot.
have been given protections to keep lawsuits away as long as they were a platform. They are not behaving like that. They are behaving like a publisher. That's a violation.
Well, I mean, there's just kind of a fuzzy line there, but you're right. They are acting like publishers. So now the sellers are pushing down. So I think that I am going to have to. Well, now I do see gold turning back down, and the euro is turning back down very aggressively.
Gary Rich says more news breaks on Twitter than other places.
Well, that's true. For us, Twitter is very useful, but for the
Uzi
average
Knesset
American,
says Twitter is influential because all the elitists and their army of
There you
Jorno
go.
soldiers use it. The average person has no idea what's going on Twitter. Uzi Knesset says PewDiePie has nearly 3 times the amount of subscribers that Twitter has US users.
PewDiePie has 3 times the amount of subscribers that Twitter has US users? What? Really? I don't believe you.
Gary Rich says thinking social media was gonna be nice as a joke. How naive for one to believe this.
Well, it never was in the beginning. I mean, that's the thing that I think is so weird is that these media companies, part of the
Sunday
reason
Driver
that
says the influencer class is on Twitter. Twitter drives the news and moves public discussion.
part of the reason that they were so
Uzi
successful.
Knesset says
Here,
nearly
hold on.
43 million US Twitter users, 106 million PDP subs.
Oh, maybe you're right, Uzi. Okay. Here, you guys can keep putting your comments, and I'm just going to turn off auto read so that we can do this in a orderly manner. The thing is that when these companies started out, that was one of their selling points. I mean, like the thing that was nice about Twitter was that it was a way that you could get an idea to have widespread reading, and you could basically do anything that you wanted. And then it kind of turned into, well, there's harassment on Twitter. And that one was understandable because, hey, nobody wants to post on your platform if all they're going to get is harassment from it. So that one made sense. But then, the SJW crowd got involved. And now all of a sudden it was, we're offended about everything. So everything is harassment, which was silly. And then it turned into, we're offended by things that are false. And so now they've become the ministry of truth. It's ridiculous because it's just antithetical to why a lot of Reddit is probably an even better example. Reddit flat out would not have become as popular as it did if it wasn't for the alternative content that you were able to find on Reddit. And they're basically killing all of that. They banned the subreddit for LGBT Republicans. Like, what? That's freaking retarded, right? The guy that funded Reddit, I don't think he would have been down with all that. I don't. Okay, I want to take more risk on this. All right. On the treasury, at least. All right. This one. That one's a loser.
Gary
Never
Rich
heard
says
about
listen
them.
to this one. Tristan Harris spoke about this stuff years ago.
Like, remember when Google's philosophy was do no harm. So if they come all the way down here to like that 27 area, I'm gonna take it again. Commission rejects Trump campaign request for fourth debate. Who wants to bet that they don't even try to go forward with the first three debates? There's no way this Vice Commission wants Joe Biden debating, even if it's entire purpose of their existence. Tweets Donald Trump Jr. I think this could go down to 27, guys. Now, why is it that all of these asset classes, including the dollar index, are flipping around, but the E-mini is not? Is it because the dollar index, dollar strength is negative for ES? That's it right there. Will we finally see full? I'm taking a trade here because I think I just saw the longs capitulate. Gold is positive. I have gold at just maybe $3 above where it was at the news. So like initial move, they lost $5 and then they went up $10. Well, they moved up from that five, they recovered it and then went $10 up, and now they've come back $3 back the other way or so. So they're pretty close to where they started. So we'll see which way they go. I suspect though that gold should fall. When I saw the news, I thought, okay, that is an exceptionally better than expected number, especially given all of the other analysis that I read. This should be something that can trend up all day. And I was totally wrong, right? And I decided to put a lot of risk on that trade too. I should have just cut my losses a lot more quickly. Or I should have, like an initial one, I took a contract and got stopped out. I should have just let that one happen and waited. Of course, I'm surprised that they moved down this far. I'm really surprised. Excuse me. The treasury moved way through me, so that one I've got to bail on.
Sunday Driver says they are looking ahead. Current economic numbers are just reacting to coming back online. The valuations are still toppy as we are still near all-time highs. Earnings have to drop big time.
But dude, earnings is basically over. The majority of companies have reported now, and it wasn't that bad. I think that your bear argument at this point is that there are further
Sunday
dominoes to
Driver
fall.
says you are thinking too short term. Going forward, earnings are going to suck.
I mean, if they're in line with the current expectations, what makes you think that next season's earnings are going to fail expectations so badly? To make a bear case, you have to say that the economy is weakening and that the recovery is going to stall and turn back down around.
Live Action says Seth, I did the same thing yesterday, shorted size off eco data and was wrong. It took me all day scalping to get it back.
Yeah. Man, they're not even letting me out here in the treasury. The Treasury's moving higher is a real...
Sunday Driver says the bear case is playing out before your eyes. Why didn't the market accelerate like you thought?
I don't know yet. Let's see.
Uzi Knesset says there's the squeeze in ZB. I notice that happens a lot when going through the cost bases.
Yeah, totally. Well, so now the question is, are they going to go and push the cost basis on the other side? Because we haven't really seen them just like stop in the middle after something like that, have we? The E-mini does appear to be recovering, though. Now we're about 5 minutes before the open, so we'll see. Well, they seem to be suggesting the turn right there. The level 2 does. I'll try it. Try one more in the treasuries. Okay, well that entry in the 10-year was a lot better than what I was doing before. Charles Gasparino, my sources are not in the Joe Biden inner circle, but rather on Wall Street and a step removed, so consider the source. They're saying an announcement could come as early as today for the VP pick. The Kamala Harris people think it's theirs, and Ambassador Rice think they're still in. Okay, so the euro took a real dive there, and we're seeing some dollar strength come in now. If that trend with the dollar strength continues, that could really hurt gold. But I'm not so sure about the E-mini. It might make the recovery, might make a move up in the E-mini hard. Simon Fuller is turning to TikTok to find the next pop superstar. Oh boy.
Sunday Driver says yes. Dollar strength is hitting gold presently.
The turn there in just since the top in the last 30 minutes has been pretty hard. In fact, I'd say
Sunday Driver says short term. I see US dollar going below 90 in the coming months.
let's see here. Oh yeah, it's significant. Like from a technical perspective, you have to be thinking about a major trend change in the dollar. So, Charlie Gasparino saying that Biden would announce his VP pick today. You
Live
usually
action
don't
says
make an
constant
announcement
S
like
block
that on a
shorts, but it's
Friday.
still climbing.
You usually don't make an announcement like that on a Friday. Yeah. Well, I mean, they stopped out all of the longs, so a at least some of a long here in the E-mini would be expected. But you got the currencies going on. If like there's going to be like serious dollar strength coming into this, that's going to make that really hard. And that doesn't mean that they're going to get above the overnight high, right? Okay, well, that was pretty strong bidding going into the open. Hmm. Okay, that Trump floats executive action even if stimulus deal is reached is hitting the Twitters right now. Some people were saying that was responsible for some of the move up yesterday.
Live action says I caught that spike but giving it back here.
Yeah, that was a good spike up, but they immediately sold it on the open.
Gary Rich says gold will be at 1800 in 2021 and 2022. This is why I own 2021 and 2022 160 GLD calls.
At 1800? You think it's going to fall $200? I mean, it's 2000 right now. You must be talking to slightly different instruments. Okay.
Live action says woohoo I am out. Vlad Stolyarov says if does pullback. Vlad Stolyarov says put 18-day moving AVG usually support for daily gold.
Sunday Driver says if gold is at $1,800 in 2022, I'll be very surprised. I'm thinking at least $2,100.
Well, yeah.
Gary Rich says gold will be at or above 1800 in 2021.
I think that if gold came back to 1800, that would have to assume that the market did make a V-shaped recovery and that no kind of pullback or disaster ever occurred. Like, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a bullish call. 1800, right where we're at right now, 1800 doesn't sound like a bullish call, you know? And you're making a bull call.
Sunday Driver says it would also say rates went up.
Oh yeah, well, no, not necessarily. If rates were to go up, that's generally not. Oh well, sure, yeah. Rates would go up and push gold down, yeah. And if rates were to go up, I mean that's the kind of the conundrum is that if rates went up, the market
Gary
would
Rich
throw
says
a
think
total
about
fit.
it. Play the scenarios out. Rates are not rising, the Fed said none till 2022.
Okay, but Gary, they're at 2061 right now. You're talking about a $250 drop in gold from current price. He's right. For them to drop that much, the interest rates would have to rise, and that would wreak havoc on the equity market.
Gary Rich says yes, it will retrace a bit.
Okay.
Sunday Driver says gold has moved so fast that $1,800 is a bear call.
So you think that 250 is just kind of an okay pull? Okay. I guess it's like what, 2.5% or whatever. I guess it's not a huge pullback.
Vlad Stolyarov says 3,325 acted like support pre-market.
Okay.
Gary Rich says even if gold rises to 2,500, I'm not selling those calls. It's a longer-term play. Gold's run is slightly parabolic. The flow of funds is enormous the last weeks.
That's true.
Vlad Stolyarov says Baba down.
So an interesting thing about that one is when you look at this rise in equities, right? Normally you think, okay, equities are doing really well. That's not necessarily a good thing for oil. Like here with this news, we've been saying, okay, the jobs number is good. Sorry, did I say oil? I meant gold. But the jobs number is good. This should be good for equities. And we should expect to see gold take a little bit of a hit. But one of the reasons why equities have been moving up is because expectations for inflation have increased a little bit. So that's really supportive for gold. Now, the question is, how far can these expectations for inflation go? Because I personally believe that deflation is likely to be a bigger risk than inflation is. You're going to get a little bit of inflation right now because of the yield curve environment, but eventually things are going to stagnate and deflation is going to be a real concern for a long time. Kind of similar to what happened after 2008, where gold made a big move up and then the deflation came in and they couldn't hold it. So I think that to try and say that 2 or 3 years from now that gold is going to continue to be up as high as it is I'm a little I'm not so sure that I would take the opposite side of that trade, but I'm a little skeptical about that one. I think we'll have deflation, Fed will pump like mad, and then we'll have breathtaking inflation. See, the thing is that if the Federal Reserve pumps like mad, it'll just create more deflation. Because basically what's happening is it's forcing more people to invest and consume less, and so you don't get the inflation growth. Zero money velocity, they can print all they want and get no inflation. That doesn't necessarily mean that the printing is going to do them any good, but you're right. It like creating inflation is like a real conundrum in the situation that we're in.
Gary Rich says equities have moved up due to poor yields on bonds. Did you see the auction of 30 years paper? Huge demand. Think about this. How do insurance co-model risk-free rate on 50 basis point 10 years?
Sunday Driver says depends on where you pump. Pump into people's hands in the form of yang bucks, then you have inflation.
But not necessarily, Sunday Driver. What if they just take all of that money and put it in the stock
Vlad
market?
Stolyarov says only when they need to raise rates later, zombie companies with ton of debt will suffer.
Right. Because when it results in inflation is going to be, okay, and we're talking about especially inflation in consumer goods and things like that, it would have to either one, people would have to go out and buy a lot more stuff with it, or two, companies would have to go out and turn around and increase people's wages with it. Are either of those two things happening with we just gave people stimulus checks? The exact opposite happened. Everybody put it into the market, and the money velocity has decreased. If Yang Bucks came along, I think that the financial advice that everybody would give you is this is extra money that you are getting now. You should invest all of it.
Sunday Driver says stimulus checks were very short term, and not everyone put it in the market.
Sure, but it didn't really. Well, I guess there was a little bit of inflation in like foodstuffs, wasn't there?
Gary Rich says savings rates have jumped tremendously. High levels like in 2008.
Same. It's really kind of a sick irony for my own view of things, because my own view is always that if you want to increase GDP growth, that you got to get more people to invest.
Sunday Driver says
And
an increasing stock market is also a sign of inflation. Is it not? Stocks are inflating.
Not necessarily. I mean, so let's try and qualify inflation, okay? Because I think where the inflation like really matters is what its impact on the dollar is, right? So at what point is a decrease in the dollar significant enough that it's a serious negative to us? It have to be a lot lower than it is now. It have to be like in maybe the 50s, right? So we've had people are buying stocks for sure. What has it resulted in? 7-point drop in the dollar index. Dollar appears to be going up still. I don't know if equities can make a bull move or not. So going to be very instructive to me, I think, to see how this turns out.
Gary Rich says lower dollar equals more dollars flowing in the system. Dollar high equals less dollars in the global system.
Yeah. I feel like you guys are saying a lot of things that are way too simple. Like, yeah, the more dollars you have in the system, the lower the dollar should be, but it also depends on global demand for it, too. One of the problems that we're seeing is that some of that money has been coming into the United States, and now it looks like some of that money is coming out. And maybe now today, it seems like maybe some of that money is coming back to the United States again. Kundlo says payroll tax delay executive order is ready for Trump's signature. Okay, well, good progress on a new high in the E-mini.
Vlad Stolyarov says faster market today.
I don't know, man. Anytime, every time that I think about what you guys say about the dollar, all I can think of is all of the people in 2009 that were going into gold and nothing came of it. I mean, I guess you could sit down and you could say, okay, yeah, the gold moved up big, and then you take your profits at some point. But my observation was that they stayed in it until they couldn't anymore
Vlad
and
Stolyarov says they
lost
had their
money on
small
it.
moment of glory.
Yeah, it was like they had their small moment of glory, and then everybody was like, "Oh, it's gonna like," especially Zero Hedge. I read a lot of Zero Hedge now. Back then, I didn't. But when I read Zero Hedge back then, I always was laughing at them because everything that they post on their site was, "You should buy gold," and then it didn't turn out. They were like dead wrong.
Sunday Driver says that's because the Fed lied. They said a lot of things to strengthen the US dollar, but didn't do any of them. Now, no one is believing the Fed.
Say they lied, but the gold still dropped. It's probably not in the United States' best interest for gold to move up
Uzi Knesset says they lied
significantly.
and gold died. Vlad Stolyarov says silver is going to do pullback.
And if that's the case,
Sunday
right?
Driver says that's why gold dropped. Fed lies made gold drop.
Okay, well, what makes you think that they're not going to do it again? You think they're not going to believe them this time? They can squeeze them. Let me tell you something. All of those guys, like I said, all those guys that bought gold back in, the 2009, 2010,
Gary Rich says the last decade was different. We are in a new paradigm.
they did not want to give up their gold longs. They fought it every step of the way. They got totally washed out. Mm-mm-mm.
Vlad Stolyarov says last decade was Obama money printing too.
Yeah. But I mean, and that really comes down to like,
Sunday Driver says they will. I don't think people will believe them. I admit that it will be a clash of the titans, but gold will eventually win. It always does.
always does it. It doesn't always. It lost. It lost. I mean, but I mean, this goes to the bigger disagreement here. So you're saying that the reason that gold came down was because the Federal Reserve lied. And I'm saying that the reason that gold came down was because people realized that deflation was a pervasive issue that was going to be around for a long time. And deflation is not favorable to gold. And when I look at the current environment, yeah, we're getting some inflation right now because of the way that it all works, right? Especially with the way that the yield curve is going right now, you're going to get some inflation. But the Federal Reserve can pretty much keep on the current monetary path, right? And so they don't have to create, should be able to get things back up to normal, and they should eventually be able to get some inflation. But over the long term, the risk is still going to be deflationary. So you are confused on deflation to gold? It is. No, I'm not. Deflation is not favorable to gold. In 1,000 years, gold will still be used as a store of value, and dollars will not, maybe. You say so. I'm quite frankly, this goes to a larger thing of mine, right? Gold is a very ineffective store of value. The problem with gold as a store of value is that it has no real intrinsic value beyond that which people attach to it. The only value that it has is a means of exchange, similar to Bitcoin. The only reason that Bitcoin has value is that it can be used as a means of exchange. So you got this thing, if we're having deflation, then what's going to happen is people are going to continue to buy treasuries and gold is going to go down, just like it did last time. Because inflation, yeah, Donald Trump tweeting, great jobs numbers. Because the deflation means that people can't spend as much money on goods or things like gold. Just like in 2008, gold and silver will crash with the stock market. Hey, by the way, hi AK. Well, we were making the argument after that, right? I mean, maybe it would help if we pulled up the chart here, right, for the discussion to make it more clear to everybody what I'm talking about here. It's a little better to pull up TradingView if I want to look at a really, really long chart, right? So if I go to a week, and we will add in here a add symbol GC. Okay. Okay, so do you see it here? Here was 2008. And I was saying in 2009 and 2010, they bought gold up. And the story was always, oh, yeah, gold is going to be really great. And you can see through this whole time period, especially here, because this was a little bit of a stumble, right? Gold was up. But then ultimately they said, oh, deflation. We have to keep interest rates low forever. And so gold came back. And then it wasn't until here when the interest rates started rising that the gold started rising as well. So I'm just saying that I think that you're likely to see a similar setup where for the near term, and it could be up to 1 to 2 years, you'll see gold move up. But then ultimately the persistent deflationary factors that have been holding things back will come back in and force gold back down, and they'll have to give up all their profits. That's what I'm saying will happen. It'll be the same thing. It'll be gold. I have to make a little, to bring out my little pen. Yeah, okay. So we're saying in the scenario that the E-mini continues to do this. Okay. A VIX will continue to be like this. Okay. And gold will, oops, I'm going to have to resize this. Gold will go like, and it'll give up all the way back to here. That's what I think it will probably do. And what I think you guys are saying is that inflation will come along. Let's do it in yellow. You're saying inflation will come along, and that will force treasuries down. It'll force the E-mini down because of inflation. And that gold will just, accelerate and shoot up. And I'm saying I don't think that that's very likely. Gary says, change the name of the channel to self-sabotage. Fuck you, Gary. You're wrong. That's like a 2-year, that's a 2-year macro outlook. And obviously we can't really predict it. But I think that you guys coming in and saying, oh yes, gold is the future for certain, I think it's hilarious. And you want to call that self-sabotage, but it's not. It's frankly, it's the majority economic opinion. Maybe that's a problem, but I would not look at the move that's going on in gold right now and try and extrapolate it over the next 5 years and say that's the way that's going to go. If I'm wrong, you know what, Gary? If you want to pay me for the last bet that you lost, then maybe we can talk about the next one. Maybe then. But quite frankly, you can only come in and want to talk about it when you don't agree with me on a particular thing. And it's like, well, if you don't agree with me, then just trade it that way.
Analytical Kinetics says the end game is inflation and a dollar wipeout. A digital dollar will probably come next, but the conversion rate will probably be unfavorable.
So you think you're thinking the same scenario that they are, AK, yeah? You agree that the last bet wasn't official. I would have paid you. Okay, that's fine. I'm only gonna take a bet on something that I really think that I have a true edge on being able to predict. And I don't think that I have an edge to predict something that's going to happen 5 years out from now. Too much stuff's going to happen in the meantime for me to really, like, well, let me put it this way. I can go in and I can say the biggest risk to the economy right now is deflation. And I can trade off of that right now. But, hold on. They're talking about Canadian IVP, the problem is that we could go out and I could say, the greater risk in the next 5 years is deflationary, and gold still go up and me be wrong because of a number of other factors that are not really directly related to the argument that we're making, right? We have CPI now, but the feds have pulled out all the things that are going up, not accounting for food and energy is problematic since there's all kinds of inflation in those items. Well, there has been some inflation in some foodstuffs. There's a lot of different measures, though. They look at all those. And the Federal Reserve does account for some of that other stuff, too. Ah. Don't play this BS with me. I am smarter and wiser than you will ever be, so you want to cuss at me, then fuck yourself. Okay, Gary. You say so. If you say so. I think you're full of yourself. I mean, I can sit down and I can give an economic forecast 5 years out and be able to say, well, my ability to truly accurately predict what's going to happen over that time frame is pretty limited. So it's very much just speculation and shouldn't be something that I make a trade-off of. Right? And that's the difference here, is that I acknowledge the limit of our forecasting power, and you seem to think that you know exactly what's going to happen. Even when there was a dozen people just like you in the past 10 years that traded off of that very exact thesis and lost everything. And so the reason why every time that you guys bring this argument up that I argue with, you guys want it so hard, isn't necessarily because I'm like, oh, I would really like to take the other side of that trade per se. Only in that I've seen hundreds of people fail in trading over the past 10 years because they believed that so strongly. It was such a pervasive component of their beliefs and their trading system that they basically were always going short against the index, especially at the lows of the mini panics, and would just get blown away when the markets moved higher off of for who knows why. You know? And so that's why I'm always going to come in and say, you know what, guys? the bigger and more probable risk is deflationary. And the more that the Federal Reserve fights it with the tools that they have used to fight it so far, the more difficult it is to dig yourselves out of that deflationary hole. Because those tactics kind of force people to save more because they're not getting as much yield from their investments. And it creates further inflation. It creates further deflation because there's less consumption overall. That's what tends to happen. That's what happened in Japan. That's what's been happening in the United States. And I expect that after the initial phase of this recovery, that trend will continue. We'll go back into a period where the E-mini just kind of is really low volatility, not very good trading, slightly up every day, a few points every day, and that's it. And treasuries remain somewhat elevated. That's likely that's most likely what's going to happen. And if you want to trade against it, then by all means. But I just have to point out, problems we've had with it. Okay, there's a Canadian PMI. It was not quite as good as expected. Oh, no, wait, I'm misreading it. It was much better than expected. 68.5 versus an expected 57.5. Turn that back on. Now to another point that Gary was making, that he's like, I want to, what was he saying? I want to bet money which hurt you and make you feel really, really bad. Yeah, if that's the way that you're going to be, Gary, then don't come around, because I don't find that helpful. I don't need. Here's the thing. So let me tell you a story. Yesterday I made a post on one of the Facebook groups. Well, it was actually several days ago, and somebody came in and posted on the post like 2 or 3 days afterwards. And they were saying, oh yeah, I tried following your stream, but it was too much chit chat and I didn't see you make a trade. Are those small boxes in the upper right, times and sales, they're now moving? Oh, you mean the upper left? Yeah, you know what? These ones, I don't have them on set right. They're level 2 changes, not times and sales. Anyways, he said that. And I was like, okay, well, I do take trades. I've done pretty good the past 2 weeks. Here's all the trades that I've taken. I don't necessarily explain everything because I'm not like looking to be followed. And the guy was like, well, if you don't want to take criticism from the public, then don't be in the public or something. And I was like, I think you are under some sort of mistaken impression that I care about what the public thinks, or that like the whole thing is to be popular. I mean, I want the channel to grow. I don't necessarily want to have 100 million subscribers like PewDiePie though, right? And the reason why I like Gary is because he's contributed useful things to the channel. If you're just sitting in here and saying, well, this guy has a particular macro view that I disagree with, and so I hate him and I want him to lose money, then you're not the kind of person that we're really looking to have here on this channel, and I would prefer that you just go away. Right? But if you're going to be like you have been traditionally, which is that you tend to know your stuff, you're able to point out good observations about things when we don't know what's going on and point out new useful things, then yes, please stay around because you really know your stuff, right? But I guess the point here is we're trying to create a community that's positive and is favorable to our goals, which is being successful traders. And yeah, it's not And I don't want people to follow me. I want people to learn and create their own views and trade their own views. Right? That's why it's fun to argue about it. Because then you get to test your views, right? So that's also why I'm always willing to spar with you guys over that issue. So I know that the majority of retail traders don't buy it. That what will happen is the majority of retail traders don't believe it, but they'll still trade in favor of it. They'll buy the dip even though they think that eventually it's going to result in inflation.
Sunday Driver says it's a tussle. That guy wanted a technical trader who he could follow, reading the market's entrails in real time. You have a lot
Yeah.
of fundamental traders in your chat.
No, that's totally what it is, Sunday. Like I wish I handled people when they come in and say, "Are you ever going to make a trade?" a little better, because it's like, why do you want me to make a trade so badly? Because if we're trading, we should take trades when we see good trades, and if there's not any good trades, then I shouldn't be in a trade, right? It's like that, and yeah. Anyways. Because my whole thing is I think that the lie is that the way to find success in trading is to follow somebody else. I don't believe that at all. And then that's partially why I largely feel that technical analysis is kind of a trap, because technical analysis is largely the art of making decisions based off of what other traders are doing. Okay, a little bit of an extended sell there, but I don't know. We're not quite to the counter trend period yet, are we? Do you see maybe so gold slipped back down to below 2060. So I guess we could call that down, but it's not super significant. Are they going to extend lower? Like if they push down to 2050 and 2040, and then that might be a little bit more of a slaughter. But in the meantime, but then there's also this change in the euro and this change in the 6J, and I'm kind of wondering how long those can go on for. But the E-mini did move up in the end, right? So I think that we were probably right in that a lot of that move, and that down move in particular, was dollar driven. Dollar is really strong at the moment, yes. I have it almost 93.5, so that's a really big move in just an hour. 0.5 in an hour. Yeah. Half a dollar in an hour. Okay, we finally got a favorable tick in the E-mini. Or sorry, in the 10-year. Jeez. You got some Plod says nice dump in metals. Yeah. So I think that like we got the currency flows, and that was kind of not very favorable to us in the E-mini, but now that they're equalizing back out, the E-mini can just kind of do its own thing, and so I don't have to worry about the correlation quite so much. Let me highlight this for him. Oops. not take the picture? Hmm. Hmm. Ah, that chart died. Well, let me take a picture. So now I think it's time for me to close this workspace. Try and fix all that. Another favorable tick in the E-mini. It's going to destroy my workspace here. So I'm going to have to kill Ninja Trader. Oh, Ninja Trader. I still think that it's my dollar index synthetic that keeps killing it. I don't know how to adjust my code for that so that it doesn't have that problem. May just be that Ninja Trader isn't well suited to. Air conditioners are breaking faster with tenants hunkered down at home. Okay. Okay. No, the E-mini recovered that really, really well. We're still not quite to the counter trend period, so. So my chart had frozen, and now that it is unfrozen, I can see that gold really got slammed. Man.
Vlad Stolyarov says sitting on my hands not doing any shorts.
Well, looks like they get hit into the highs.
Vlad Stolyarov says they usually correct these crazy markets on Friday if they do.
Yeah, I don't know.
Vlad Stolyarov says whatever ran ridiculously like oil.
Okay. Oh, so my treasury's looking good now. So I'm kind of thinking about how I end up doing overall today, and I feel like obviously my initial trade was awful, and then my second trade was equally as good, assuming that we take it off at good prices. But both of these have gone further than the losses did. Um, but so in the end, today's results are going to look okay, but I feel that it required entirely way too much risk to do it. I came out and I said, well, the jobs report is good and I want to hit this hard because I feel confident about it. I think that the positioning screwed me up way too much because I mean, the thing that was the most frustrating about it was that when it came down, I was able to identify the down spot too. It's just there's no way that I could have identified when we were at the peak that we were going to go down there. So I'm trying to think about how I need to adjust my risk management to deal with that. All right, now I get that. Treat Friday as scaling day?
Vlad Stolyarov says Friday. Vlad Stolyarov says treat Friday as scale-in day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is where I kind of will screw myself up. That is that I'll take too much
Vlad
risk on
Stolyarov
a
says it's
chop.
usually chops.
Take too much risk on a non-farms number. Wouldn't be the first time that I've done that. Okay. Okay, cool. We're good. Let's clear these. Oh, actually. I guess not. Let's just wait. Let it play out a little bit. We are now in the counter trend period. I think that we'll probably get a little bit of downwards to sideways movement in the E-mini here the next 30 minutes. I do think that we can get over the peak. Let's zoom this out a little bit. Oh yeah. I think we could get up to yesterday's high, frankly.
Live Action says I saw a video comparing CQG to Rhythmic and Rhythmic One wonder if they could beat TT.
Well, yeah, so when I've been doing it, the thing that I've noticed that's different about TT is that TT seems to filter it less. So like when I look over here on the 10-year, and I see it change here and maybe like 20 orders were added there, I'll see it's kind of chunky, right? You just kind of notice there's a little bit of a chunk, right? But when you watch TT, because they filter them less, you'll see it. Okay, it'll go up to 43.
Live Action says I want no filter.
But you'll see it kind of like how to describe. Instead of seeing, all of a sudden it changed to 43, you'll see it very quickly change one order at a time. So it's like there's kind of this smoothness that you'll see with it sometimes. Right? It's kind of the same thing as if you come into Jigsaw here and say, make the update interval be
Vlad
7 or
Stolyarov
something.
says what creates buy imbalance at end of day in SPY, Think or Swim news yesterday.
Interesting. That sounds pertinent to our interests. Oh, that's interesting that I have these set to 100 because I thought that I had changed that. Oh, update interval is 20 on that one. It's 20 on that one. Now let's change this one to be 20. 20. There you go. So now you can see that you get a little bit more. But here's the thing is, does that really help you? I don't think that it's worth the, $50, $100 a month. But it is nice.
Kevin Wimmer says, could this be the first red day in the week? Counting the overnight open.
Could be. I mean, I feel like the macro news and the setup and everything is pretty good, but there's a possibility that they just want to be done for the weekend and that they can't push up much more.
Vlad Stolyarov says inside day is just correction so far.
Yeah, and the move yesterday was a little excessive, so. And the question is going to be, because we're in the counter trend period right now, right? So how much of this are they going to give up?
Vlad Stolyarov says then can go test yesterday's prices that started around 1 p.m.
Man, if that was, actually, there was some things that was telling me I should have taken some profits that I missed. Should have taken it at 40. Should have taken it up at the high. Okay. If I hold it now, that's turning it into a swing trade, essentially.
Kevin Wimmer says we are also up like 90 to 100 points during the week.
Yeah.
Live Action says 50 a month unless you do 168 trades a month. I am at 58 already today.
Man. I mean, there's no question from what I've seen that the TT data is better than the others. That's for sure. I'm just saying for most of us, it's probably not a significant factor. Cool. Maybe I will get it. Find it curious that the treasuries are continuing to press on the interest rate here, even as the E-mini dropped there. Mm-hmm.
Vlad Stolyarov says Roku is up today, can't trust market.
Heroku is up today. Is there something about Roku that you don't like? So I was thinking about, they were on my investigate list. Okay, well, the E-mini flipping back
Vlad
around
Stolyarov
there at
says
the
had
open,
earnings.
but having trouble. Oh, okay.
Vlad Stolyarov says went down now recovered all.
Oh, I see. Yeah, Brannigan Barrett seems to believe in the gold short.
Vlad Stolyarov says TikTok wants to sue Trump. Let's do it.
What? No, really? I didn't see that one. Libertarian Redhead asks, why does Joe Biden keep making damning
Vlad
comments about
Stolyarov
minorities?
says TikTok threatens legal action against Trump's executive order, saying it sets a dangerous precedent.
No, I think they would lose that one. Well, so this person on Twitter asking that. I tell you, here's the thing about Joe Biden. Here's my opinion on it. I mean, we don't really know. But there was a story on Red State the other day that was saying this, and I agree with it. I think that the reality is that Joe Biden doesn't think very highly of minorities, and he hasn't thought very highly of minorities his whole life. It doesn't mean that he thinks that they're like a subhuman species or any of that like really racist nonsense, but just that he generally had associated in his mind that black people tend to be poor. And now that he is older, the left really, really wants to talk about minority issues. And so it's inevitable because he's so old and he just doesn't have very good impulse control anymore. Not that he ever did, that he'll just continue to say dumb things about minorities. And I think that as this goes on, that he'll continue. I'm going to bet that during debates, if we have debates, and I think we will, I hope we do, that he'll say something dumb there too about minorities. And I think that it really is because he has a deep-seated unconscious bias that black people are poor. Interestingly enough, not interestingly enough, the media continues to kind of downplay those episodes and give him a pass. Well, I tell you what, that was a pretty decent downturn, good 10-point downturn, and now like we're appearing that we're going to recover it all. And of course, I held it, and so I was kind of thinking that was going to happen, but I'm still just a little, caught off guard by how much it's moving. Also, I really wish that I gotten filled at 03. I think I can still do it. I think I'm going to keep it there. Especially when I look at my spot in line and the liquidity that's gone on top of it. If we were to tick down, there's a good chance that a lot of that liquidity would pass and wouldn't take very many orders for me to get filled. So I really should just keep it in there. And if the E-mini continues this up move, then we're definitely could get it. Oops, I wasn't reading those out.
Vlad
guys.
Stolyarov says now AAPL could save the day again. Vlad Stolyarov says looks cheaper. BC had 0.82 dividend. Live Action says that could be even scarier. Vlad Stolyarov says S at midpoint here.
So somebody was pointing out to me, they were talking
Vlad
about getting
Stolyarov
CME
says looks
data.
bullish.
Yeah, it does. Talking about getting CME data, and I'm like, oh yeah, because I went on a long bender 1 week, because I wanted to make a synthetic treasury.
Vlad Stolyarov says I would let out the
yield.
news.
Like I wanted to use the price of the future to predict or to estimate what the yield should be. And to do that, you really need like the DVO1. I mean, you can calculate the DVO1 too, but basically there's data from the CME about what is the cheapest to deliver and all of that sort of stuff. And I could make those all just things that you enter in manually, but I wanted to make something that would, go out and grab it for you. And so I looked into it, and like the CME did appear to have APIs that would have given me that information, but it was like $250 a month or something like that. It was like a ridiculous number. It wasn't a ridiculous number, but yes.
PRT1 says redonkulous. Vlad Stolyarov says they increasing margins on futures like silver, so maybe that's why people can't martingale.
No, they should. The silver's that's yeah. Because when silver gets moving, the margin on it does not. Yeah, I'm glad that the CME has learned and that they're increasing the margins faster. Frankly, I'm gonna say something like really unpopular. Like it's so unpopular that I'm hearing myself saying it, and I'm like, no, don't do that. That's a dumb idea. But really, they should recalculate the margins every morning.
Vlad Stolyarov says see that spike on AAPL. Vlad Stolyarov says looks like misprint.
That's pretty good. Oh, I don't have the Apple open.
Vlad Stolyarov says 454.7 misprint. Vlad Stolyarov says in Think or Swim.
That could be. I've always wondered what causes the misprints in Thinkorswim, because I used to see them a lot.
Vlad Stolyarov says I double check in TradingView is fine there.
Cool. I would really like better data that would give me access to. Well, first of all, I would like to be able to pull up stocks here in NinjaTrader. But then I would also like to be able to look at things like block trades. Like you can look at the block trades on their website. I would like to be able to look at my block trades within NinjaTrader. You can look up the DVO1 on this CME website. I'd like to be able to do that inside of NinjaTrader. There's lots of things with data. Like, it's kind of funny when you start to realize the data that you don't actually have. It's really eye-opening. Yeah, exactly.
Vlad Stolyarov says the stuff behind the scenes, yeah.
Because it's like, why is it not in? Why don't retail traders have that information? Right? We never sit down. We never sit down and question, do I really have all of the data that I need to be doing what I want to do? I think that this is very much the case in order flow. Order flow in the end is market buys minus market sells cumulative delta. That doesn't actually tell you what people's positions are. And we've done a slightly more complicated calculation that kind of tells you what people's positions are. But because I can't see stops, that's going to be somewhat inaccurate. If I had stops, then I could make it even more accurate, right? How come I can't see stops? Because they don't want you to see them. That's important information. Some people disagree and say that it wouldn't be useful, but it would make my indicator more accurate and it would provide edge. Knowing the DVL1, like, that stuff actually does matter if you can, predict. If you can calculate out what the interest rate is going to be, then you can game out scenarios about where the interest rate is going to go to and create prices to know what a fair valuation level is. And you can start doing things like trading the treasury based off of the currencies and everything else and a valuation formula.
Vlad Stolyarov says I follow HFT Alert on Twitter. He sometimes posts charts where algorithms accumulated where dark pools were selling pretty interesting stuff.
That's interesting. Yeah, dark pools is another
Interesting thing. Because basically the gist of it is that these large companies want to be able to do things without you knowing about it. Anthony says maybe I'm old school because I started on the floor where we were all in pits that were for one market, because I just don't see how discretionary day traders can focus on several positions in different markets. All of my energy, all of my focus goes into my one next trade. Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm in two positions at the moment, right? And I don't like doing that. Two is probably my max. And in this case, if these were live trades, I probably wouldn't do that. But because I saw opportunities in both instruments, I wanted to try them out. But you could see how, maybe if I had only taken the one in the E-mini, I would have cut that one off sooner and wouldn't have dug myself this hole, you know?
Vlad Stolyarov says 90% lost here. Vlad Stolyarov says market went up on news that stimulus is stalling. Vlad Stolyarov says if they shorted the news.
Hmm. He was saying that that's why we had that push down to 33.30 or so.
Vlad Stolyarov says CNBC 1024 am.
10.24. Oh, it's been nothing but ups around that one. Yeah, okay.
Vlad Stolyarov says that ramp up.
Interesting. Interesting.
Vlad Stolyarov says FB is crazy.
Is it?
Vlad
Oh, look at
Stolyarov
that.
says 278.
What do you think about that, Uzi? If you're still there. Especially in the ZB. That was a little dramatic.
Kevin Wimmer says man still feels surreal that we are only like 55 points below all-time high in the E-mini. We were 1,200 points away in the end of March and now almost there.
Oh, wow. It could have taken 15. You know what, though? I'm okay. I'm happy with what I got. That was a good trade.
Vlad Stolyarov says slightly smiling face. Vlad Stolyarov says this all looks like unlimited demo money trades. Vlad Stolyarov says just bet against what crowd would do.
Right. Well, Um, so I am, well, man.
Vlad Stolyarov says if it's rational.
The thing that I keep seeing in the market, you say if it's rational, is that from a day to day and a move to move basis, it looks rational. But when you look at the whole thing together, it does not. You know what I mean? Every time I can come in and I can be like, okay, we're up today because we had a good jobs number or whatever it is. We kind of came down and back up because of some currency flows. A bunch of people had to adjust their positions to come over into US equities. And that's why we kind of came down. And then once they were there and we started the regular session, we could move up. Like it all makes sense. But then when I look, we're at all-time highs, and I look at where we are, it doesn't make sense. Somewhere along the line, little bit by little bit, there was overestimations. Man, look at the yields.
Live Action says testing. Can you see this post?
Yes, sir, I can.
Vlad Stolyarov says dis up without even any volume irrational. Vlad Stolyarov says no offers on asks I guess. PRT1 says the news says one thing about economy and the market says another.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that the thing is always going to be degrees, right? Like from a trading perspective. Hold on a second. I want to take these off right here. From a trading perspective, um, how do we determine where the moves are going to do? And a lot of it is the VIX and looking at where people's positions are from. And those aren't really based on the valuations. And so it's possible that along the way, because of positioning and volatility and stuff, we've moved a little bit more. You would need a pullback at some point, right? But then the question is, what could you actually have happen that would actually create a pullback? Especially with the Federal Reserve pumping money in, it's more likely that we would just hover and start going sideways until the fundamentals catch up with us. You know what I mean? Okay.
Vlad Stolyarov says the big FANG stocks need to gap down. That's already 20% of market.
Yeah. Well, that's the other scary thing is that it's all. So here's another thing that I've been wondering.
PRT1 says it's a Friday and very close to all-time high. 50-50. Vlad Stolyarov says soon. Vlad Stolyarov says AAPL is 2 trillion valuation.
So maybe this is a stupid thought, but is it possible that because of the way that the indexes work and because the market is so attached to the index, that the index could cause everything to get overvalued? Because the Apple is a significant part of the S&P 500 index. It's not balanced. And because those have made such a huge move, it's like those start to move the markets more and more and more. and everything gets correlated. So it's like, well, if Apple's doing well, then they drag everything up with them. And so you sit down and you say, oh, okay, actually, the index is higher, but the economy is less. And if you were to take all of the companies, yeah, it's corrupting everything else. If you were to take all of the companies and add, their market caps up from the peak, and then you took all of the companies and added their market caps up from now, and you had everything that was ever in the index at that point, right? So you don't take the ones that were bad out and so on and so forth, then it would actually not be a new high, right? And so then you end up with this thing where the index actually pumps things up, and you're eventually going to get overvalued, and you're going to have the index plummet, and the index will push things further the other way. I kind of feel like that the index pushed things down too far during the March lows.
Vlad Stolyarov says, but I noticed some stocks not linked to algo buy programs, and those are mostly losers.
All right, so I actually think that like yesterday's close and everything is a pretty good bet, but I just wanted to get out of that because I was a nice even profit target for the day. And I want to go and get a drink of water. All right, so let's do that. Okay, we're back. So we should, because we had this huge argument over gold, we should have that. We're gonna say that's NonFarms,
I'm going to say gold and deflationary risks. That's all we're going to say about it. I could make it a clickbaity article. I could make it clickbaity. I could say, let's call it deflationary risks to gold. There we go. Yep, sure enough, the E-mini goes. So, like, we were above my kind of line anyways. So I was like, well, I think that this could go to yesterday's high, but I should probably take some off here. And I want to pee. So.
Mike Salisbury says not gonna call it Gary Rich loses his temper.
I mean, I don't know if it's him losing his temper or not, Mike. I think that maybe he's hate watching or something. I don't know. Who knows? It does seem a little odd, doesn't it? I mean, I don't like talking about him like this. Like, he's not here. He's not talking to us. But I do kind of feel like that sometimes the things that he says really comes out of left field. Like, I'm really surprised. He sounds so upset. To me, he seems so upset. But whatever. It's okay. That's what I was saying. You know, I always think about one of the things that's been going through my minds this week is raves. I used to DJ and stuff, and I really like to watch like stuff about the history of the rave scene. And
Kevin Wimmer says maybe he followed Jeffrey Goonlock and shorted at about 2,860.
Oh man, that would be so bad, right? Well, what was it that Jeffrey was saying the other day? He was saying that Death Valley is next to Mount Whitney. Let's look at that before I go into what I was going to talk about. There we go. Mr. Gunlock. After being at a 10-year high just weeks ago, the MOVE index is now at a 10-year low. There it is again. Mount Whitney is near Death Valley for a reason, many layers of meaning in this. He seems to be suggesting that the Treasury rates are going to spike and that we're going to have more volatility in Treasuries. Anyways, I like rave stuff, and I like to look at the history. One of the things that's interesting about rave is underground. It's all about the underground, guys. See, this music, especially like the stuff that it was at the beginning, like trance was like probably the most popular. But well, maybe not. Maybe this recent house wave has been even more popular. But back in the day, it was trance. But before that, it was like acid house. And acid house this is like weird stuff, guys. It's a 303 with a distortion on it and filter, and it's just really weird stuff. And these guys, they were sitting in dark rooms with flashing lights doing drugs, and I think that they were mostly, for the most part, they were just doing their thing. That like a lot of the people probably didn't even know anything about the music, but then they like get dragged into it and stuff. That this happens. And so to them, it was just like, I like this music and this is what they're doing. And they knew that it was like a weird thing. They knew that it was like, because it was underground. And that was kind of part of what they liked about it, was that it was something that they weren't seeking out. It was something that they were just kind of exploring around and digging deep and stumbled across, instead of the mainstream presenting it to them and then going, oh, that's cool, I should follow that. It's underground. And I think it's the same way with markets and with us, right? Because when the trance hit,
the mainstream, they were all shocked. They had no clue that this would ever be a popular thing. They always thought that they were just, weird parties as kids. And I think that that's the sort of a thing that you want to look for in trading too, is you should be looking for things that aren't there front and center. So like right now, the big thing is price action. It seems like every day I see a post on the the trading subreddits promoting price action. People are actively pushing it. This really, really works. I don't think that's the way you want to go. I think you want to go for things that are underground, and for stocks that are underground. And then, if they're actually good stuff and you actually have good taste, then eventually everybody else comes along. But not because you pushed it or anything, but just because it was good in the first place. That's the way that we should have this stream be too, right? That's why it's like I shouldn't be afraid to do something that might turn some people off, or to not do all of the clickbaity things that other people do, because the goal is not necessarily to be the most popular channel on YouTube. The goal is to have a good trading channel. And if we have a good trading channel, then those other things will just kind of come along on their own. You know what I mean?
Kevin Wimmer says, wow, big difference between MES and a mini VPOC.
Oh, well, yeah. Volume point of control is very different, isn't it? Well, the volume point of control in the E-mini actually just moved up. So let me show you what I'm seeing over here now on my inventory indicator, okay? This one. Okay, so one thing you have to keep in mind is that when the regular session starts, I have it reset. Because the longer it goes on, the more some of these positions might have been taken off at losses and stuff, and so it becomes less accurate over time. So here's the overnight. They were clearly already long. I should have looked at the inventory, because I was just looking at where they were here, and I was like, okay, they're equal. But in reality, they were very long. So look, they were very long. They couldn't hold it because there was no new buyers. They almost all got washed out. Right? We took it at 27. Okay. Come in the regular session. Okay. So, for instance, this move right here. So look at these inventory numbers, right? When we're moving against them, like for instance, we're moving up overall, right? So you're going to see the short inventory picked up, because what's happening is every step along the way, there are limit orders being taken up that don't have corresponding limit orders on the other side to say you would have gotten out, right? But when we have like this move down right here, you don't see that, do you? This blue should move up, and it didn't. This was a really slippery move. It happened on there was not a lot of market orders catching it. Or sorry, there wasn't a lot of limit orders catching it. And then it comes up. And so we get persistently over and over and over again that the buy side market maker inventory is very, very low. And we saw this yesterday as well. Okay. So we come way back here to yesterday. Here you kind of see the same thing. No, that's not what it is. That's the end of the day. We want to go into here. Okay, yes. Okay, so here you can see shorts are picking up contracts, but buyers are not, even when it comes down drastically. And what happens? It just keeps going up. And in particular, there was this thing right here where they stopped them out, right? Here today, kind of the interesting thing is that they've already long been stopped out.
long since been stopped out. I think that we're going to have a pullback somewhere back to like 39 area, and then maybe they can push higher again because they are going to have a. But here's the question: is like, okay, what percentage of the market is long versus short right now? Well, the market makers aren't very long, at least, right? There's likely the most likely scenario, I think, if we could calculate stops, then maybe it would show us different. But since we can't, we're just going to have to guess. I think the most likely scenario is that there's more market makers short than there are market makers long. So what's happening is it's chasing, right? I think that this is a pattern where I can say conclusively that the longs are chasing performance. They're not able to get in on these moves. They're too scared. And then it goes back up and they go, oh, it came all the way back up. I do want to be in it. And they're buying it up here with market orders and chasing it.
Mike Salisbury says interesting inventory indicator. Is this counting passive orders being taken? Familiar with inventory in the way Dalton talks about it. Kevin Wimmer says
Bingo.
Jeffrey Goonlock is very short at least.
I basically say how many passive orders were taken, and then I assume that if there was another order on the buy side that was at a lower price, for instance, well, I'm going to give you the full explanation. I'm not going to give you guys the indicator because I think it's very valuable. But it was on the Futures IO board, and that's still there, so I can just give you this description of it really quickly. But the programming of it is complicated enough that I don't want to give it out, right? If you're going long, then you sit down and you say how many passive long positions could possibly have been taken, so how many orders were taken at the bid, and then if there was orders taken at the offer at a higher price, then we cancel those out. So we go up, we cancel those out, and what we will get throughout the day is a certain amount of volume that will be left. So this is theoretically the best case scenario for a long. If you had one guy that was just taking all of the longs, this would be the best average price that he could get, right? So all those orders, we take the volume weighted average price of that, and that's where you get this blue line. And then we look at all of the volume that got canceled out, and we look at how much of volume is. So those are profits, and then we look at how much volume is still on and calculate where would be like a break-even point, and that's where you get this dotted line here, right? So the reason that this dotted line ends up being so useful is because that's basically like all the shorts have been stopped out. All of the market-making shorts have been stopped out, and the only way that you get higher than that is with new participants coming into the market and stopping people out and stuff like that.
Live Action says your platform's volume may be aggregated too much.
So I don't think that's really going to be your problem. Like, volume aggregates. The issue is going to be that your level 2 and your volume can get out of sync, right? So if they're out of sync, this is a great example here. Is like at 33.43 in the E-mini, like 1500 has hit there, right? Okay, but when it ticks down and back up, there might be an order that hits here at 33.43, and after it ticked up because it's late, but it actually was a seller or whatever. So when one price is flashing back and forth really quickly,
the matching feed and the level 2 feed can get out of sync, essentially. And if it's even out of sync, even a millisecond could potentially cause an order to be misclassified. Because that's how we know if something is a buy or a sell. There is nothing in the feed that tells you that it's a buy or a sell. It's literally just, this is how many orders went through, and these are the prices that they went through at.
Kevin Wimmer says, does this happen often that the VPOC in a mini and MES
Oh, yeah.
differ?
I see it all
they
the
are
time.
many points apart. Live action
I
says
see
might
that all
also
the
be
time.
when you opened each ladder.
I see that all the time, and I think that it's a good, it's actually could be a useful thing, because you might be able to game out situations in which retail is going a certain way compared to the overall index. But I don't pay attention to it too much. Anyways, so for my indicator, volume getting misclassified between buys and sells would be significant. That's where, again, having the market by order data would be useful, because we can see the orders get matched and taken out, and we know exactly how much was taken.
Live action says, what platform are you using so we don't smiley face?
Wow, the problem that I'm talking about is a problem with pretty much every platform except for Bookmap, to my knowledge. I don't know of anybody else other than Bookmap that has market by order data in there. The issue is that the percentage of times that this happens is such a small percentage of the time that it's not really important. Oh man. You went long 4 contracts before the news release, and then you take it off immediately? Because what happened to me was I went long in the news release and rode almost that whole pullback, and then got out. It went a little bit lower. I got another signal to get in off of exhaustion, and then I held that one all the way up to like the 40s, 33 40s. So in the end, that canceled out my loss, but I felt really bad about it because it wasn't the greatest trade. We'll just put it that way. It was, I made some good calls in there, but I didn't like how much risk I took on in the first trade. I'm also kind of wondering if I should have held my shorts in the treasuries to 140 even, but man, that trade that I caught over there was really great too. I've had good bad trades and bad trades. Says how I get it. Yeah. It was, yeah. I don't know. I think that my conclusion about it is going to be that I want to play that differently, even though it came out positive. Sometimes the news spikes can hold. So yeah, you're totally right. And the thing is that we've had many recent history where the non-farms news just trended all day, right? I think that may end up being the case here now, is that they're just going to trend up all day. I was considering holding my long in the E-mini to this point, but I had reasons to sell it and I needed to be. It was still a good trade.
$133 USD says, I feel the same. I'm not even happy to see a huge rally, but it's going in that direction.
Yeah, so you know what? I've been kind of weird yesterday. Let me take a drink here. My mouth is. When I watched that close yesterday, because yesterday I had a long in there, and I think that they would have moved down a little bit to pressure my stop, but overall I had it right that they were going to continue moving up. But they moved up so strongly at the end of the day yesterday, and I'm like, what is this over? Donald Trump's gonna do the unemployment stuff on his own? Is that it? I don't know, man. It was just like a really crazy move. And it felt to me like so many situations I had had in the past where I had taken on too much risk and gotten it wrong and did really poorly and had to scale back. And it felt, it feels really bad. And I watched that move yesterday and I was like, well, I'm doing well during this period, but I still feel that same way, like that there's something seriously wrong with the trading or the market or something. And maybe I'm just in a cycle. I haven't had kind of like a down emotional cycle for a while. So maybe it's just that. But I was doing stuff like, I was listening to a lot of music and kind of starting to feel that way a little bit. And then I watched Land Before Time last night. You seen this? Surely you guys have seen The Land Before Time, right? From 1988. I was 3, right? I was 3 when that movie came out. And I remember being 4 or 5 years old and watching that movie every day. I watched that movie every day. 133, you've never seen it? It's a good movie. It was produced by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and it's a cartoon with dinosaurs. And the kids like it. And I was watching it because, I've got the baby. And one of the baby's favorite toys is a Triceratops. So I got the toy and we were sitting there and he was watching it. And he saw the Triceratops, and then he picked the Triceratops. He clearly understood that what we were seeing on the TV was, at least it seemed to me, that he understood. So I'm watching this movie, right? Okay. I'm not going to ruin everything for you, okay? But, okay. Spoiler warning if you haven't seen Land Before Time, okay? Spoiler warning. Oh, yeah, your kid is smart already? I hope so. We spent a lot of time with him, so I would hope that he'd be smart. I'm hoping that all of the time and effort we've been putting into him is payoff. So spoiler alert, but in Land Before Time, Littlefoot's mother dies defending them from a Tyrannosaurus Rex. They call him the Sharptooth. Okay, Sharptooth kills Littlefoot's mother, who I don't think ever has a name. We're ever told this has a name. It's just Mother. And oh my gosh. And so that's sad. And he goes and she's dying and she's like, "Do you remember the way to the Great Valley?" "Yeah, but why do I have to know?" Oh my gosh. It is so effing sad. This is a kid's show. It was like a traumatic scene of a child watching their mother die. Oh my gosh. I watched this every day. I'm sitting and I'm watching this again and I'm like, I watch this every day. Like that must have been traumatized because I remember crying about it. I remember watching it over and over and always crying at that part. I'm like, this is a traumatizing show. Like if I picked up emotional trauma that has followed me through this whole life because I watched The Land Before Time too many times as a child. And I'm watching it and I'm starting to think like maybe. So because another thing that happens, I couldn't watch it. Oh my gosh. Well, and then the thing is that after his mom dies, he goes into depression. Like Littlefoot seriously has depression. Okay. He's moping around. He's sitting and staring at the water.
for a really good portion of the movie. Like not kidding, like a quarter of the movie, he's just depressed. And then never after that, it's just personal trauma, right? So then it comes into the whole gang gets together and Sarah joins back up with them. The asshole Triceratops, right? And they go to sleep, and Sarah is like, well, I don't need anybody, and she goes and sleeps out by her own, and all of the other dinosaurs go and sleep by her instead of Littlefoot. Like, what the heck? Vincenzo, in late, have we solved the world's problems? No, I'm talking about how the Land Before Time has scarred my mental psyche. Yeah, so this is like makes no sense. Why did all of the dinosaurs go and sleep with Sarah instead of Littlefoot? Like, he's the reason that they all got together. They all like him. Sarah's an asshole. And they go and they sleep with her instead of him. Now, the thing is that over time, they all get tired of the snoring, and so they all go over to Littlefoot, and then eventually she does too. So I guess it's like a cute moment, but I'm sitting there thinking, like, that is like, you ever had that experience where, like, you think that people are your friends, and then they go and they pick other people over you for no reason? Like, it makes absolutely no sense why they would, because that other person is a jerk. Ugh. Like, I'm thinking about that. Not that I've had like dramatic experiences like that in my life, but it just kind of seems like the way things often happen in the world, right? They sure are trying to hold it down for sure. I might rebuy on the swing of those. Yeah, so we are at buyer's cost basis at the moment. So if I really wanted to buy again, I think this is the spot to do it. 33, 38 probably. We're a little late, but this looks like a good spot. The Lion King seems to have good messages. Well, what is the message? So here's the other thing. Okay, so that was a little traumatizing. Then here's the next thing: is they're going along, and Littlefoot pushes them. He's like a slave driver. He wants to get to the Great Valley, and they're all following him because he knows about the Great Valley. He was told about it by his mother. Apparently his mother's never been there before either, but she just knows that it's there. So basically they're going to the Great Valley 100% based on faith. And they get there, and what happens is Sarah, oh, this isn't the Great Valley. I don't like the way that you're going. I'm going to go an easier way. And half of them are like, oh yeah, that way is easier. I'm going to go that way. And they follow the jerk again. Right? And then what happens? They get stuck in lava or something like that, and Littlefoot has to come down and save them from the lava and save Sarah from the raptors with the crowns on their heads that are trying to smash her. Right? So what is the moral of the story here? People will make wrong decisions, and you'll tell them that their decisions are wrong, and they'll go and they'll do it anyways, and then later on you'll have to go and bail their ass out. That's how and I'm like, you know what? That is life. But I'm like, did I take that? Do I see life that way because I watched that movie too many times? I think it might be the case. It might have flavored some of my perspectives of things. Right.
Vincenzo C. says Seth has studied this cartoon into the wee hours.
This is the problem when I look at any kind of media, as I'm always going like way too deep into the meaning of things. So here was another thing about that movie, is that after that, they see the sharp tooth, and Littlefoot is like, hey guys, you know what we could do is we could lure the sharp tooth here to this pond, and then we can drop that rock on his head, and it will push him into the pond, and he won't be able to swim, and he will drown in the pond. And so they go and they send Ducky out to be bait and lure the sharp tooth over to the water. And, you know, there's the whole dramatic thing, and of course the sharp tooth dies. You know what just happened there? That is first-degree murder. Okay? He was not, you can't claim self-defense. I mean,
When he was attacking them, that's self-defense, sure. But in that situation, he was off minding his own business. He wasn't eating them yet. They plotted out a murder. It was pre-planned with prejudice because he had a vendetta against the shark tooth because he killed his mother. That was first-degree murder. It's a kid's show. They're plotting murder. Are you kidding me? And then when you think about the underlying thing about it, it's a faith. The whole thing was that Littlefoot had faith that the Great Valley existed and nobody else did. And he kept his faith in the face of tribulations when other people didn't believe him, and he ended up being right. You would never make a movie like that these days. There's no way. There's no way.
Live Action says, Seth, you should had took that long you called.
Maybe. I haven't gone up there yet, so I don't think that it's over yet. But I wouldn't take it because it's just too close to when we gotta go. So
133 USD says 140 cars bought at Ask on Dow.
is that a lot for the Dow? I've never pulled that one up. Pelosi/Schumer to hold a presser on Capitol Hill at noon on the coronavirus. That's huge, apparently. Interesting. Milwaukee police chief demoted over tear gas use and other incident. PRT says no thanks. Jordan Peterson has studies on the Lion King and has a class on it. Okay, so that's what we'll watch this weekend. Is the Lion King, and I will try and pick out what is the philosophical basis behind the Lion King.
133 USD says, who installed new Jigsaw beta charts? Mine won't work.
I've done it. So 133. Oh my gosh, my phone just fell out of my pocket. Sorry about that. Here's the problem, 133. If you're using the NinjaTrader bridge, then the charts don't work. Try not to cry watching Man of Steel. What? Okay, so I'm going to show you now. Here's the Jigsaw control panel. And here I can open up a chart. So if I come over here to chart and I select platform and I say, I want a chart of the E-mini, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then you can pick these stuff. So you can pick a couple of different chart types that really you just want candles, and you click OK. And you'll just get nothing. Well, that's not right. The problem is that for whatever reason, they have decided that you can't use the Jigsaw, the NinjaTrader 8 bridge with the charts. Probably because they don't want you to use NinjaTrader anymore. I don't know. Okay, so we can fix that though, right? What we can do here is I'm going to come over to NinjaTrader, and I'm going to I'm just going to disconnect from my CQG over here. Okay, so I've disconnected. You can see that I'm not getting data anymore. And now I'm going to come over here. Hold on. I'm going to, because I don't want to risk showing you guys account numbers and stuff. So I will really quickly come over here and connect to my AMP CQG. Connect, pending, connected, loading. Connected. Okay. So now I can come in here. Okay. So now I can come over here and I can set it on through the futures with me connected directly to it. And I can say, okay,
I want the E-mini futures. Okay. It might take it a second, but now you've got a chart loaded. Okay.
Mike Salisbury says trailing limit and with a tick functions in TT, seems like they could help scalping ZN quite a bit. If you're going for ticks and don't want to lose a price.
They've got,
PRT1 says whereas footprint chart. Mike Salisbury says well I am only on the free 1-month trial to learn the functions not available in Jigsaw which I normally use asterisk.
yeah, I gotcha. Well, it's kind of interesting when you look at TT, like what are the things that they are focused on? They're focused on like programmatic things that you can use to move your orders for you. Smart thing to focus on, isn't it? I do prefer the Jigsaw DOM though. Anyway, so here's the Jigsaw chart. I will come in and where is it? Settings, studies. So if you come into studies, look at all the studies that they've got on this list here, man. They got a ton of stuff. So I can add the view op, and let's add up at the top they have JT swing charts. So you notice the only one that they have that is actually like an indicator that they created is JT swing charts. So what does that tell you? This is like they're using somebody else's charting package as a base. Like they probably bought the code as a base and then they've made enhancements to it. My understanding is, based on what they've said on the blog, is that this chart is actually a web page. Like it's not. This wasn't written in C#. It was written in the cloud, essentially. So if they added a new indicator in there, I don't think that you would have to update to get it. I think. If I understand it correctly. Could be wrong about that. Anyways, so you get it in the cloud. But I mean, here's the problem. Right now, you get these charts. Cool. But like that's it. There's the footprint charts aren't in there yet. Volume profile charts aren't in there yet. And you can't use your indicators. Oh, do they have ATR stop? Let's see. That should be one. ATR trailing stop. They do. I like it. Yay. I like the ATR trailing stop. Yeah, ATR trailing stop seems to be a really good trend indicator I've found. You can really see how when they go through that line, it's like things just totally change. Of course, if you try and trade it off of just that line, you're often too late, but I think on this one, I should change the properties here a little bit. What do I want it to be? Do I want it to be like a period and a multiplier 2.5? Okay. There we go. Oh, it has to be an int 32. So that's wrong. It should be a double. Okay. So there we got ATR stop. Let's add this. Let's go back here. I can change the color of it. And that's it. I can barely see that. I can barely see that line. See it in my upper right chart on NinjaTrader. NinjaTrader. Do the dotted line. Yeah. So, Jigsaw has charts now. They work. They don't work for me. Nah. I need my cost basis inventory number. There's serious edge in it. I want that. And I want to write my own indicators, and I want to change the way that they look. And yeah, so far, it's good that they have charts in there. I'm a little disappointed with what they are now, but of course they're not finished, so I'm not going to judge them too much yet. But I'm a little concerned that like they're going to spend forever working on these charts, and then you're not going to have charts that you can change, and they're just going to be like behind. And I really want to see stops. Now, changing their platform to use the rhythmic market by order data would be a really big change for Jigsaw, and it would probably slow Jigsaw down a lot. And I don't think it would really be worth it for them. But I have uses for that data, so got mixed feelings about it. But that's what it is. So again, to the question 133, you can't use the bridge. You have to be connected directly in Jigsaw for it to work. Hope they change that, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
PRT1 says beta. Everything I've seen with JS has burned great. I expect good things in future.
Well, so the question that I have is, are you just going to duplicate everybody else's charting functionality? Or are you going to include functionality that will be useful to Jigsaw users? For instance, could we please make it so that the current value of my indicator will automatically be placed into and updated on my Jigsaw DOM alert column so that I know where that moving average or high, low, whatever it is that I want? See, those are the sorts of things they should be building. Pivots. They should probably include. Oh, did they have a pivots indicator? Really quickly. I will check. Yes. Pivots. Not that I think pivots work. Oh, they do have pivots. I don't think that they work, but people use them. You know, that's the sort of thing that I think people want. You know, if I could get the pivots to then automatically get placed here on my U-mini, you know. So if they put that kind of stuff in there, then it would be great. But they have said we're not going to get rid of existing functionality. So I guess I can continue to use NinjaTrader 8 and Jigsaw together for forever. And if they ever open up programming for Jigsaw, then I'll just write all my stuff in Jigsaw and move over. But maybe I make my own platform just for me because I want market by order data. I digress. It's time for me to get going. Thanks, you guys, very much. Overall, a good stream, even though I'm really unhappy about a bunch of different things, but it's okay. It turned out okay. It turned out in the end. I made 158. So I made more than I was down.
Live Action says that a gallant's pivots look like they work.
Yeah, so like hold on.
133 USD says pros hid their orders via synthetics. A MBO is useless, bro.
That's not why I care. So at one at a time. And I gotta go here in like 2 minutes. So I'm gonna be really quick. So don't add more stuff. We come back on and talk about it on Monday, right? For pivots, they're really popular. So you're going to get a lot of bandwagon effect where because so many people use it, it does seem to affect it. They'll usually pierce through the pivot and then reverse if they do. So yeah, pivots are useful to have on there. But if you backtest it and everything, you're going to lose money. And I look for opportunities to actively trade against them. Like I look at them and I say, okay, I see S1 there. There's going to be resistance against it. And then I'm there but it's like, oh yeah, but this piece of news just came by. So all of these guys are going to be trying to take profits there or even go outright short at that spot. And I know that we should be moving up much further. And I will 100% trade against it. So, and that's the same with any technical indicator. Just remember that technical indicators can be useful because they quantify market conditions for you, but they are not predictive. Okay. Now to 133, saying that the pros hide their orders via synthetic, so market by order data is useless. That's not why I want it. So the whole argument is that the reason you use market by order data is to detect exchange side icebergs and the like. That's not why I think it's useful. I think that it's useful because one, when you're doing something like cumulative delta, you know that the cumulative delta that you're getting is 100% accurate because you can see the orders get taken off as they get filled. It will actually say, okay, here's an order. Here's all the orders in the queue. And then it will tell you this order is gone because it got filled. And this order is gone because it got filled. And so you don't have to guess about, are my best bid and offer synced up correctly with the volume coming through? You know that number is exact. Now, is that a huge deal? Not on its own, it's not. But then the other thing that market by order data allows you to do is it allows you to see that when an order becomes a market order, you can see essentially that it was a stop before and that it got converted into a market order. I don't know how that's done, but that's what I've been told. And that's what Bookmap claims to do. So if I can see stop orders, then on my indicators where I'm trying to calculate people's positions, I can use that information to determine how much inventory is actually on from the shorts and so forth. So then it would be very useful because it would allow me to more precisely predict where we're going to turn around and things like that. So yeah, you can only see stops once they are hit. That's correct. But that's exactly what I want to see. I want to see when an order hits and it's a market order, I want to know if it was somebody just putting a market order in or if it was a stop. That's exactly what I want to see. And you can use that information in the calculations that I make, and it would make it be more accurate. And if you look at it, and just show you here, you will see that it is extremely influential. Here is this like break-even area. They come up there, they can't go through it. Come back over here, they're going to pierce the seller's cost basis. They're not able to hold it. And based on this situation, or even better yet, this one, okay, where did they finally bottom out at? Buyer break-even zone, right? It's extremely effective, particularly in it's even more accurate, I would say, in the treasuries, right? Although today was a little bit of a bender, so they're going to go a little bit further. But on a range-bound day, they will if we're on a downtrend, they'll go down, they'll come right back to that cost basis and bounce right off of it. Almost every time. To the tick. It's accurate. There's edge in it, I believe. I still think that it's not predictive, that you need to use news to together with that positioning information, but it seems useful. And so to me, the market by order data would be useful. How do you get MBO? You have to use Rhythmic. You have to use Rhythmic API. Okay, so that's all the time we got time for today. We will be back on Monday. And until then, stay profitable, friends.